Welcome back to New Spirit. My name's Anna.
Hi, my name's Brittany.
Today we have a super different but exciting episode because we're actually doing a Q&A today. So we're getting feedback directly from you guys. And we get to answer the questions, that people have around whether it's addiction, mental illness, mental health, self-care, recovery, healing, like all the elements that come with kind of helping yourself and getting help. So I have a list of questions on my phone.
I have a list of questions on my Instagram here,
and we are going to
just jump right in.
Fire these babies.
Yes, and trigger warning, we forgot to put on the last one, but just trigger warning, we are talking about sensitive subjects, alcoholism, addiction, mental health, all the things. So
yes,
there's one guy on there. Yes,
hospitals, all the things that could potentially trigger you. So there. Britt, do you want to start?
Yeah. Okay, so let's just... Do you have one you want to start with?
Sure. I have a very common one.
I have a lot. Okay. Yes, you start.
The one that I get the most often, and I think a lot of people want to know, is how do you know when it's time to get help?
And that's such a good one.
And we were just talking about this with our last episode, that a lot of people have like this conception that, I need to be bad enough to get help. I can't get help until it's bad enough. I can't get help until it's rock bottom.
Right.
But most of the time, if you're really honestly asking yourself, if I need help, is it time? It's probably time, right? And there's no like criteria either for getting help. It's if you think your life could improve and you can get better, do it.
Yeah, you don't have to hit a rock bottom. I know a lot of people think you have to. Like, you don't have to get a DUI. You don't have to lose your kids. You don't have to do any of that. You can just want a better life, simply, And I think there's only you know what's best for you. And if it's making your life unmanageable, it's time to get help.
Yes, 100%.
All right. We're just going to keep moving through. Oh, that's funny. I had one of that too. How did you know it was time to get help? So that's kind of similar. How did you know it was time to get help? I think for me, it was when the drinking turned into the morning drinking. It was when I wasn't able to, transport my kids or fully function or go to any sort of social gathering without drinking. I wasn't able to just relax at night without it. And when I started, for me, it was just when I started suffering really bad consequences, because not everyone has to. Personally, for me, I had to. That's how my story was, but I know it's not like that for everyone.
Right. So. Yeah, I know for me, mine, similarly, I was in the hospital a lot, but I do remember I was in a psych ward and I had a specific conversation with a caregiver who did an evaluation for drug and alcohol abuse. And, I was obviously wanting to leave. And she looked at me and she was like, with this assessment and with what we've talked about, how much you're using, she's like, I'm going to tell you right now, you are probably not going to be able to get sober on your own because you will have to detox.
Yeah.
Will have to go through withdrawals. And she was like, this is where I think you should go. And I was like, well, I didn't think it was even bad enough to get withdrawals.
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean?
Yes.
What do you mean?
I remember that. So before I went to detox, I had tried getting sober on my own for 6 months, I was really trying. I couldn't get more than 3 days on my own. I couldn't because the withdrawals were so bad. And so I had to go to detox to medically detox because I couldn't do it without medication. I wasn't on a whole ton. I was on naltrexone, and then they did put me on Valium for the first 3 days, and it helped me so much, and probably a bunch of other stuff too, but I needed that.
Yeah,
same with you, but not everyone does. If you can quit on your own, if you are, really, really bad, if you are drinking all day, every day, I do not recommend detoxing at home. It's extremely dangerous.
That's they say that's one of the most deadly detoxes, right?
Yes, alcohol and benzos are, right? Is it benzos? Alcohol and benzos are the most, yes. Yeah. So I have had a seizure before. It was the scariest. Yes. Oh, I actually have a picture of when it happened and then I stood up. I was soaking wet too. It was the craziest experience of my life. Yeah. So, and then also the other way of how I knew I needed to get help was the day I lost custody of my kids. You know, that night was finally when I accepted that I needed to go get help. And the next day I checked myself into a place. I didn't stay sober right after it, but it was the beginning, you know?
So that actually, okay, that segues another question that I have, which is, what do you do if you relapse? Which is, I think, a lot of what at least what I see a lot is when people do experience a relapse, they're just like, well, this is never going to work, so I'm not going to try. Or they'll just kind of like go back into that spiral because of the shame, because of the guilt and all the things that come with relapse. And I think, like, I definitely fell into that anytime I relapsed. I would beat myself up. I was so hard on myself. I was so mean. And I was like, well, we're already at rock bottom, so like, let's just stay there. Because that's easier. And I think when I started stepping into coaching and working more around mindset work, when I did have those relapses, I was like, okay, well, so what didn't work this time? What went wrong? Where did I kind of stray? Like, what didn't work for me? How can I do it differently next time? And that's when like my relapses like.
So when you say relapses, there's different types of relapses. There's relapses in addiction and there's relapses in mental health,
behavioral relapses.
Yes.
So many.
And I'm like just learning this, but I always, when people say I'm clean, because of my history, I always attained it to addiction.
Or substances.
Yes. But that is not always the case because it's like that with self-harm too, correct?
Oh, yeah. Behaviors, vices, but then like the whole mental health or mental illness, for example. All of those things can relapse.
Yes. So, okay, I have a question. So what does a relapse like with mental health, like when you've had yours, like what does that entail? Is that like thoughts, you're having suicidal thoughts again, you're wanting to go back to old ways? Because I think in addiction, like we call that like an emotional relapse. So, yeah, is that kind of what you're...
So my relapses with my bipolar, for example, are basically, it's essentially like a big flare-up.
Okay.
All my symptoms come back very intensely. Everything rushes back very, very fast because I'm on my meds. I'm very stabilized. I really don't experience those symptoms. And so it just, you're kind of like at a baseline. So relapses for me, which I actually had a pretty bad relapse before. Why are you laughing? I just had a random thought come into my head. I don't know why. I'm crying. I didn't have a random thought. Because I want to fish it. I'm so sorry. What? I don't even know. I saw a TikTok yesterday and the guy was at the gym and he said something. This guy shit his pants at the gym. For some reason, that random thought came into my head. Did you imagine? Anyways, I'm so sorry for the very serious subject. This is straight ADHD. I need to talk about something. Right? I don't know. Do we need to do a check-in? We can pause. No. Excellent. Or you said it. I've been trying to be serious. And then I randomly think, but now you're giving me as really weird visuals. I know. Okay.
Sorry about that there.
Or if you like have intrusive thinking, like I think like our audience needs to understand what just happened.
I have no idea. Yeah, I don't know. You're the coach.
I don't know. Like, do you want to have
I have no idea. Right, sometimes I think with my ADHD, like I try to listen, you know, but sometimes my mind just wanders. Same thing when I'm like reading a book.
We should just title this podcast like real life example of ADHD.
Yeah, right? I know. I don't know how I just got a diagnosis for ADHD because I've been like this my whole life, but
that's also the experience that I hear from people with ADHD a lot. Is they're like, I'll listen to someone and I'll try so hard to listen.
Yes.
But then my brain's just like boop, like going all these different directions.
Yeah. Wiley and even my kids too. Like they'll ask me something, I'll be like, and I'm like, you weren't listening to me, right?
I didn't retain anything you just said. Yeah.
Oh, I try. And I feel like that's so rude, but I don't mean to. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean to interrupt conversations with talking about with fear of shitting in my pants right now.
Also, do you need to step out? Okay.
Oh
okay. So let's move along. Okay. I was going over so mental relapses.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a very serious subject.
Yes. So my last one was like 4 months ago, which like weirdly enough, I think a lot of people have this misconception that like if you have a mental illness and you're on meds, like you're cured and it goes away. And that's just not the case. Yeah. Particularly with like bipolar disorder, it makes the symptoms less intense and less frequent. So I still have to manage them on a day-to-day basis. It's just easier. But this relapse happened when I was on my meds.
Okay. That's different.
Which, yeah.
Because then you're questioning everything. Like, are these even helping?
So that's how I knew it was like a true
Mm-hmm.
chemical relapse that we were going through. And then naturally when you're going through these things, you don't want to help yourself. Yeah. Because you feel like you're at rock bottom. And so I took myself off my meds, which made it worse.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's kind of what mental relapses look like for me. Okay. But they look different, I think, just like depending on like what you're dealing with, right? Like there are so many, I mean, EDs too. It's so specific and unique to what you're battling and what you're trying to like abstain from. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful. I know I've had multiple emotional relapses in sobriety, and I beat myself up over it, you know, but thankfully nothing has led further into a physical relapse, and I'm able to catch myself at that stage before it gets too bad.
But also putting like an emphasis on like those, like the emotional mental relapses can feel just as hard as those with substance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's been so many times where I'm like, gosh, fuck, I feel like shit. Like why I might as well just drink, you know, like it can't get any worse than this. But it can.
It can.
It always can.
And like we don't want to find out.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Do you have any good ones?
Let's see.
Oh, how do I overcome the fear of asking for help?
Oh, that's good.
That's a big one.
I have that fear too. I hate asking for help. I hate picking up the phone, but it's so important.
How do you like, you know, now in your life when you have moments where you're like, oh, this is a lot, I need help, and not necessarily like in like, you know, the ways you did when you got sober, but like on a daily basis, how do you advocate for yourself when you need to?
What was the question again? My ADHD is really kicking in today.
How do you ask for help when you need it?
Okay.
Like even today.
Yeah, I think it starts with, I mean, if you don't have like a support group or like sober friends, or people who understand what you're going through, you know, like talking to the people closest to you, just letting them know. Like my husband, thankfully, he's learned a lot with being with me for 16 years on how to deal with these type of things. Mm-hmm. He knows how to support me now, and I've made that known. Just like Cameron kind of too, I feel like he's been
the whole thing we did with like harm reduction and like you know, like honestly telling people what you need prior and like having those conversations around like, this is how you can help me. Mm-hmm. This is how you can show up for me. This is what I need in these moments prior, because when you're like in the middle of it, it's so hard to like verbalize those things, and then sometimes when you verbalize them, like they just don't land well, and then there's like frustrations in that communication. That's a really helpful tool to
reach out to us too. You know, send us a DM on Instagram, send us an email. Like that's what we're there for too. I know I have my recovery meetings on Monday that anyone is welcome to come to. I stay after for a couple hours to chat with people who need more support and extra help. And you just got to get over it. And you got to know that if someone's offering help and they love you and they want to support you, like they mean it. They're not going to tell you to like, I'm not going to tell you to call me or to reach out to me if I really don't want you to, you know?
Right. And I think a lot of people think that like they, like a lot of the reasons people don't want to ask for help is because they're like, well, I can handle it. Like I can manage it on my own and it's only impacting me. So like, I'll be the only one to worry about it. But also like on the flip side, if you really
want to give that much attention to helping others and you really want to show up for others, like those people pleasers, like the best way that you can show up for the people in your life and the people around you and everyone that you want to help and be there for, you have to do it for yourself first. Because the minute you stop taking care of yourself and you can't do it, promise you're not going to be able to show up for the people in your life that you want to.
That is very, very true. I definitely learned that last year, and it was really hard for me to like step back from friendships and groups and even my meeting a little bit too. But I know that I couldn't be there for anyone else until I was there for myself. Just like I can't be a friend to anyone else until I'm a friend to me first. And like I was not a friend to myself last year at all. And I think that's why I had so many failed friendships and things last year, was just because I wasn't showing up for me first. So
Absolutely.
Okay, this is a good one. Feisty Firecracker asked, what tools did you use to cope when you really wanted to drink? I feel like that's really good. There's so many things.
So many.
For me, like I'm thinking about, okay, but I really want to drink when I'm in like a social setting. So if I'm at a restaurant, if I'm at a party, that sort of thing, and I feel triggered, I always have a physical drink in my hand, obviously a non-alcoholic drink, a sparkling water, an energy drink, a regular water, a Diet Coke, whatever you like, have a drink in your hand. That protects you for a lot of reasons. No one can come to you and be like, you know, hey, can I get you a drink, or do you want a drink? Because you already have one in your hand. So, you know, you don't have to get into any awkward conversations if you don't want to have, like, they're just not going to bug you if you have a drink in your hand. Sparkling water for me at home, like, helps a lot too. So that's my husband. My husband's not really an addict. He doesn't identify himself as that. He's struggled with addiction in the past, but that's his choice and his way. But when we quit drinking, his like new addiction is sparkling water. Like I love it too, but he drinks it religiously every night still to this day. And he says the carbonation helps him so much. So, what tools did you use to cope? Obviously, I have a sponsor because I work a 12-step program as well. And so I will call her. I will let someone know that I'm struggling and that I'm having these feelings.
Telling someone like what's going on is important too, so that you can have those check-ins.
And I think just if you need to just like say no and show up for yourself and do something that makes you happy, like take a bath, watch a movie. For me, like I love creating content and making videos. Like that's like my outlet, and it does help me. Like when I'm in hard times, it helps me by making content about it. I know people on the internet are like, oh, it's so attention seeking, like she's crying on the internet again. I'm like, it helps me, and I know it helps other people too. And
well, sometimes people need to see those things too.
Oh
like,
yeah,
as an audience or someone looking from the outside, you're like, oh hey, like I had a really shitty day today too, and like spent most of it in bed crying. Like cool, like now we can like relate in that way.
Yeah, because our lives are not perfect. Someone commented that not too long ago on a video, was like, it's so annoying how you act like your life is perfect now. And I'm like, excuse me? Pretty sure I've shared all of the ups and all of the downs too.
Yeah.
Like it's very clear I'm far from perfect, but anyways, we don't worry about them. We don't know them.
Any other good ones? Let me see.
So are there different ways to recovery? Everyone says AA or NA is the best. Everyone doesn't say that. I'm a firm believer on that. And that's because my recovery meeting that I host, it's not AA, but we have about 50% people who do work a 12-step program. And we have about 50% people who don't, who have either never tried it or had a bad experience and did not like it and don't feel welcome, because I wanted it to be a safe space for everyone. But I will say it's been very difficult to have the two, because like 12-step programs, they do follow a lot of principles and guidelines that are extremely helpful for some people, but it doesn't work for everyone, you know?
Right. And I think recovery in all aspects. It's not like a one size fits all.
Right.
It needs to be very unique and catered to that person and what you need.
And now there's coaching. Like that's a form of recovery too.
And
like
that's being implemented like alongside therapy and alongside clinical work. So you're getting all those different, like that. That's what I needed.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I'm so excited to get my certification and start doing that. It's almost like sponsorship, you know, to a 12-step program, like having a sponsor. You are helping them, you know, through something and helping them recover. But there's a lot of other programs besides AA and NA too. There's Celebrate Recovery, which is more of a Christian kind of church setting. I'm trying to think. Michelle, what else is there? Smart Recovery. I looked into that. I had a pretty big resentment towards AA before, and it's because when I was posting videos, like hanging out with people who drank, I was like going to parties and bars in recovery, sober. A lot of people got pissed at me, and especially people who were in the program, and like they would leave comments like, that's not how someone of Alcoholics Anonymous acts. Like, you're not abiding by the principles. And I was like, you motherfuckers. Like, it pissed me off so bad that I'm like, I'm leaving. I don't want to be a part of AA anymore. If you guys are holding me to a certain standard and you don't think I'm good enough, I'm leaving. And I left, and I had this resentment, and it was so crazy because my life went to shit after that once I left. And, you know, before I knew it, I was sitting in my closet with a bottle of vodka that I had bought at how many years? I was 2.5 years sober at the time, about to drink. And that's when I was like, okay, you know what? We're going back. We're going to sit your ass back in the meeting. And because I know that works for me and that helps me personally, but it's not for everyone.
Right. Recovery is just going to take a different form per person, and that's okay. I feel like this will be really good for if you're in a relationship. If I suspect that my partner is hiding their relapse addiction, how can I approach them? This is a hard one. That's
because
a tricky one.
I think either way, they will get defensive about it right away because you're either accusing of them or you're catching them, you know?
I mean, right, because they're going to get defensive either way, but I will say they will get more defensive if you come from an like accusing standpoint and an attacking standpoint, right?
True.
Instead of being like, you're doing this, you might say, hey, I'm wondering, or hey, I'm observing, or how are you doing with this, right? Like those are going to be much gentler ways than being like, you're drunk again, you're high again.
Yes. Yeah, definitely approach it carefully.
And honestly, like just with the intention to understand, right? Like
yeah, you're asking
we want
them
to be understood, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you can be like, hey, like help me help you, help me understand, I want to understand, like that's just going to be so much more receptive, you know, from them on their end than pointing a finger.
This is another good one. Let's do some relationship ones, like spouse, partner ones. Do I need to stop drinking for my spouse if I'm not the one with the problem? So we tried that. You know, my husband and I tried that. I needed to get sober. He didn't understand why he would have to too if he wasn't the one with the problem. And so we tried it. I took all my alcohol out and I was like, okay, yeah, you can keep your liquor in the house. It's whiskey. I don't drink whiskey, so it'll be fine. No, before I knew it, if it's the only liquor in the house, like I was drinking the whiskey too. And then we were talking about this last night. I was filling it back up with apple juice. Like I was freaking 13 years old again because I started drinking at 13. I'm like, so... And then ultimately, that was one of the reasons why I decided to move out and get my own place, because I was like, I cannot get sober in a house where there's alcohol in it. It's not like that for everyone. And it does take a lot, you know, out of a relationship, and the other person really has to want to as well. Like my husband explains it, you know, obviously I moved out and it was crazy. He said the day I moved out was the day that he stopped drinking too, because it really set in like, wow, this is clearly a big deal to her. And I didn't want to force him to. Like, ultimately, that was his decision. And I just couldn't get. And then still to this day, we've talked about it. I was like, you can have a drink if you want to, like with your brothers, with your dad, with your friends, like whatever. I don't really want it in the house. Actually, I know I won't want it in the house. I don't think I could ever have alcohol in my house again. But I don't want to like keep him from something. And he explains it as it's a small sacrifice, So
I think that's the important thing to note there is that it starts with a conversation. And like if you want to know how to support your partner or your significant other, it does start with a conversation around like, okay, what am I comfortable with? What am I not comfortable with? What are my triggers? Like what set me off? That way you can work together, because sometimes one thing works for one couple, but it's just not going to work for the other. And you can't just go by one golden rule for everyone, because that's just not going to work.
Yep. Do you have any like relationship ones?
I don't have relational ones.
All right, let's maybe just how like, so my husband is trying to get sober. How can I best support him? That's probably like one of my biggest questions that I get asked. It's
really,
yes. And my thing that I always say is just be there for them. Let them know that they obviously are going through a lot right now and a hard time, that you want to be there to support them. Ask them, how can I support you? What do they need? Also celebrate their milestones. Like that was always huge for me. Just remember their days, whether it's 1 day, 2 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year. Like remember that for them, because it feels really good to have that sort of acknowledgement from the person that means the most to you, I'm trying to think what else. I think that pretty much covers that one. Okay, what do you got?
Let's see. What if the people I'm asking for help from aren't listening? I get this one all the time. And it's the way I say it is so plain and simple. Ask someone else. Ask someone else. Like if you are trying to advocate for yourself and they are not listening, don't stop asking. Ask someone else, because the right people are going to hear you. And I think people get so scared and caught up in like, well, this person's not getting it. They're not understanding it. They won't help me. They won't they're crossing my boundaries when I'm asking for help. Don't stop asking.
Yeah.
Ask
don't let that scare you enough.
Keep asking. Like, I don't care who you have to ask, but keep asking. Like, don't just swallow this and suffer silently and be quiet.
Yeah. And think that everyone else is going to, react like that too, because that's not the case.
No, some people are going to like immediately understand, right? Like everyone just comes from such different places. And just because one person doesn't understand you and what you're going through and where you're coming from, it's not a reflection of you though. Like that's just like their vantage point. Like go look at a different one, because there are so many other ones.
Yep.
I think people take it really personally, and it kills me, because I'm like, I promise, like, because they're not understanding you doesn't mean something's inherently wrong with you. And it doesn't mean you're broken or, something along those lines. Ask someone else. Any others?
What's something you didn't expect in your recovery but got anyway?
Something you didn't expect?
Like support and community. And
the community
friendships
piece is huge.
and understanding, I think you don't realize how many people go through it too. How many people relate to you? How many people are just like you? And so I think that I was so scared to tell anyone, and only because my family lived all back in Wisconsin at the time when I was going through it. My husband's family was all here. They don't have addiction in their family. They don't have alcoholism. And they were like, the closest people to me. So I think that made it, I felt very alone, but I wasn't. I just had to get out there and realize and find community, find support. I think that's probably my biggest thing.
I think because, I mean, as a culture, everyone likes to keep these topics so hush-hush that when people actually talk about whether it's addiction, mental health, mental illness, or, you know, ED, all these taboo topics, people are like, wait, like we can talk about this? Wait, other people also go through this? And then you do build community, and that ends up being such a surprising thing, but also it's sad because it shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did we already go through how did you get through the detox stage? I feel like we kind of talked about it a little bit.
We talked about the detox, but not how. Well, I guess not.
Okay, another one was like, how did you get sober? Because there's so many different ways too.
Yeah.
So there's going to detox, there's going to treatment, there's on your own, there's going to a program, there's going to a doctor, there's coaching. There are so many different ways.
It just depends on like the severity and like what you need.
I've done pretty much all of those.
All of them.
Yes.
Yep.
At one time or another. And like, honestly, I can't say like which one worked best because one time I needed treatment. One time I really needed detox. And yeah, it's a very personal, personal decision.
And like, but don't be afraid to try either. Like, you don't need to know the right way immediately. Like, you know, ask for help. I'm sure there are professionals who will know better than you do. Like, I didn't even know I needed to go to a detox center to detox. I didn't even think I'd have withdrawals. I was like, you're joking. I'm fine. It's not that bad. And then immediately went to a 30-day program where I was just in a detox room for days. And I was like, well, this is a huge surprise to me because I thought I could just, as we all think, we can stop when we want, when we can't.
Yeah, I will say too, one thing that really helped me, like if you are in a place and you cannot afford detox or treatment, I've been there too. I will say I found one detox center that let me pay $1,800 cash to go there for 2 weeks, and that place helped me so much. They saved my life. I need to go back there. They don't know like what your life how far like I now. Made it today. Yes. So I can't wait to go back and surprise them. But I will say that was rare. Usually they're a lot more expensive for that if you don't have insurance to cover it. I will say something else that I did multiple times is because my withdrawals were so bad, I went to the ER. Went into the ER.
That's
and
also a route.
The doctors prescribed me medication for my withdrawal. So I could take that home and be able to. So I'm just saying that is an option too if you really do need immediate help.
If you're sick, like if you're in, like, also that just goes for any crisis. Like,
yes.
You're allowed to walk in and just ask.
Yeah. You should be monitored though. Just so try, if you need it, go. But I'm just saying there is other options too. Oh my gosh. I went into a psychosis on day 4 alcohol withdrawals. That is going to need a whole podcast episode on.
That's
I want to tell my whole psychosis story. It was the craziest fucking thing in my entire life. I still today wonder, there's got to be more to it. There's got to be more to it. And I packed a bag. Once I came to, I packed a bag and I was like, all right, honey, take me to the behavioral health unit. Like I am getting checked into the psych ward. We get there and the doctor's like, you're on day 4 alcohol withdrawals. And I'm like, what? And it's crazy because I was feeling so good. But that's what people say when you go into psychosis, you feel weirdly amazing. And I remember waking up that day and being like, wow, just like, I feel so good. I was cleaning the house. But anyways, we're going to go into that
another
time. I love telling that story though, because it's so,
I mean, that's
so
how
insane.
Intense it gets. Okay. What's a good last question before we wrap up? Ooh, best ways to maintain recovery and sobriety. Environment, who you're around. I think those two are definitely not talked about enough. Like your environment and what you're doing, how you're living, the people you're around, huge. Support. Can't stress that enough.
Spend time with people who you want to be like, who you are inspired by.
Yes.
Get new friends, and you're going to have to let go of some of them. And
people get so scared to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like,
I
you
will
gotta
say,
ask yourself,
for someone who lost almost all of her friends this last year, like, it's okay. You're going to be okay.
there's
you know?
still better things ahead. And like,
Mm-hmm.
you just kind of shed weight and then you find things that are more aligned with you. I mean, hello, look at what you're doing right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, you found more alignment by staying true to who you are.
Right. Yeah. And I definitely wandered away from that for a little bit, and like, that's okay too. But I'm really glad to just get back into my purpose and what I love doing and knowing what I'm meant to do.
Mm-hmm. Purpose was a huge one too.
Yeah.
For maintaining recovery, finding what's meaningful for you, finding what feels good for you in your life so that you can have like the highest quality of life for yourself.
Yep. Okay, that wraps up today's Q&A. That was kind of fun.
That was fun.
That was
like a
fun.
little,
Well, maybe we'll do it again
you
sometime.
could have gotten a few questions out if you didn't have your intrusive thinking.
Oh my gosh, I know. Sorry about the intrusive thoughts. If you didn't, I was legit crying. So if you're only listening, just know that there were tears, okay? Yeah, but thank you guys for listening. If you or someone you know is struggling with your mental health or substance abuse, please reach out to us. Both Anna and I's emails for New Spirit are in our bios.
You can head to the New Spirit website.
Mm-hmm.
Their website also has their admissions forms. If you are interested in getting help or you wanted to send it to someone else, the whole New Spirit team are all people in recovery and sobriety, which is amazing. So they have that standpoint as well.
And you'll be in good hands. Even if you can't get into treatment for whatever reason, you will get other resources. So
Yes, absolutely.
yeah. Okay. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Anna, we are getting good at this.
Brittany, let me tell you. After that moment, when you started talking seriously again,